Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. And we're going to be doing a chart of the day, and we're going to be looking through how the current transits are, influencing us and how we're basically evolving through these dynamics at the moment. So as you can see with the background over there, this is pretty much the theme that I feel that this energy has at the moment. And to be honest, there's quite a lot of change that is taking place. And with tomorrow Venus going direct and Mercury going to be going retrograde, Mars is going to be entering Pisces. You've got the nodal axis still at the 29-degree mark. They've just entered their new signs. There's a lot of things that are taking place for us right now that I feel are crucial to understand. And how could we forget Jupiter transiting Sagittarius, right? So lots of change taking place. And again, not surprising that we have a lot of these changes taking place when we've got this cardinal energy coming up. Uranus is in Aries, 29 degrees, nodal axis is at Cancer Capricorn. These are cardinal signs and they reflect to us change. And like I said, this picture behind me over here, to me, captures the essence of these symbols at the moment. We're under some really... Not that the last 7 or 8 years hasn't been an intense ride, but we're under some intense energy for us to break through, right? Certain dynamics and cosmological beliefs and truths that we hold about ourselves and about the way that we see the world. And when we go ahead and actually look at the chart itself, you'll see that with these retrogrades that are taking place, i.e. Mercury going to go in retrograde, and Venus going to go direct. This is revealing to us a need to, in a sense, revision the way that we relate to ourselves and to other people and to the world. And of course, with Venus, finished its retrograde phase, we're reigniting something here. There's a new direction that's available for us. So again, not a coincidence that we've got this Venus retrograde cycle completing itself. And I'm sure to a certain degree, some of you feel this energy already, at least for me today. There's a lot of changes that are on the horizon and I feel excited about them. It's been a very difficult journey up until now. Not to say in terms of like, oh my gosh, this is difficult. It's been more along the lines of the energy has been intense, and I'm sure for you that are watching this, you feel the same way, So let's go ahead and actually have a look at the chart. And I've highlighted some things over here for us to talk about that I think would be great to highlight. So the first thing I want to look at is the Sun at 23 degrees Scorpio. And the Sun's passage through Scorpio has really been, supporting this dynamic of Venus retrograde. Because remember that Venus was actually in Scorpio during its retrograde period. And a lot of transmutation was taking place, a lot of, getting to the core of things, unearthing a lot of stuff. And Jupiter was also for a year transiting through Scorpio. So there's been a lot of work in the Scorpio department. For some of you, maybe that hasn't been the case, that has, really been at the forefront of what has been changing for us. It all started with, experiences like with Bill Cosby and the Me Too movement, Jupiter entering Scorpio, and a lot of unearthing of deep repressed emotions, abuse, abandonment, power struggles. So with the Sun moving through this sector of the zodiac, when Jupiter leaves it, it's indicating that we're, culminating the totality of all of these truths that we've uncovered, and what do we do with this information, and how do we process it. And now that Jupiter's entered Sag, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the context of Scorpio is gone. It actually means that, with all of this information that has been brought to us for the year, and now the Sun moving through Scorpio, we're looking at the context of our underlying beliefs, and we're saying, well, at the moment, is this how we wish our reality to be? And I think it's a really interesting statement to make. How do we wish? Because if you notice, Mercury making the square to Neptune, Mars just about to enter Pisces. A lot of us right now are living, well, not a lot of us, but all of us, but a lot of us that are experiencing the nature of reality is seeing how this Neptune through Pisces transit is eroding and decaying the paradigms of beliefs and truths and structures, particularly structures, and how we wish to live our lives. And now, in a smaller cycle, in other words, looking at the astrology as it is today versus this overall 8-year transit that Neptune's had in Pisces so far, we're looking at the context of, okay, we've, in a sense, looked at our values and our essential needs. We've reorientated these values in alignment with something that's more authentic to us. Thank you very much, nodal axis moving through Aquarius and Leo, right? Self-actualization, purpose and meaning, all of these themes. And Venus completes this phasal cycle with its retrograde period, and we transmute, right? We see life differently. So now we have these new values in place, and we acknowledge them as essential for our new sort of structure in our lives. The sun will transit through Scorpio, just like it is right now, and Jupiter will move into Sag and says, okay, now we've got to believe in this. We've actually got to believe it. In the natural zodiac, so if we had to look at the zodiac as a circle of 360 degrees and that we divide it into 30 degrees for each sign, when we look at the geometry between Taurus and Cancer, there is a 150 degree separation, right, between the two and Sagittarius, as in not between Cancer and Taurus, but between Sagittarius, Taurus, and Cancer. And so what this inconjunct or geometrical shape does, this inconjunct or quincunx, right, it represents a aspect in which our perception of reality is blind to something. Now, not necessarily blind in a judgmental sense. It's more along the lines that Taurus's energy and Cancer's energy doesn't really see how it connects with Sag, and Sag doesn't see how it connects with the other two. So why am I talking about this? Well, if you have a look, Mercury's in Sagittarius, Jupiter's in Sagittarius, and you'll notice that the North Node is in the sign of Cancer, and we have Venus not actually in Taurus, but Uranus outside of that realm. But we have the values, and Taurus is associated with values. So in an indirect way, we've got this whole entire dynamic here between how we value something and how we emotionally identify with those values becoming the core context for our beliefs. And so right now, with these energies taking place, the restructuring of the belief systems that were once the supporting cast for our values need to be adjusted, right? So it's an adjustment dynamic taking place here. So Venus goes direct tomorrow, right? And Mercury goes retrograde in Sagittarius and says, okay, now we've got to rethink the way that we believe and how we have orientated our belief systems and how they validate our essential needs. And Jupiter, because it's entering the sign, still carries with it the imprinting of the original cycle that took place 12 years ago. So in 2006 was the last time that Jupiter was in Sagittarius. And so we were essentially initiating new cycles of truths at that time. And as you know, the planets weren't in the same place that they are today. You're not that same person. So in order for us to align our truth with the values that are linked with our sense of essential need and how we wish to integrate those needs and values and truths into our sense of identity, nodal axis being Cancer Capricorn, we need to be able to restructure what we believe to be true. And so this is why Mercury is trining, Mercury is trining the North Node, not really. I was going to say the square, right? So Mercury's going retrograde, and I babble off around about this trine that was taking place. I was thinking of something different. Anyway, Mercury squaring Neptune. And so the archetype of Neptune, when it interacts with anything, it erodes. It essentially decays, whatever it is that it's interacting with, while simultaneously also re-inspiring. So the decay around the way that we've intellectualized our belief systems is occurring with the square, and with the retrograde place or taking place, it's a time in which we're going to rethink the context of what we use as a belief system and how that belief system does or does not support our values. And so with this underlying dynamic taking place, you can see how within the entire context of this chart, if you have a look, there was a new moon that was taking place with the sun in Scorpio. we've now reached a first quarter square between the moon and the sun. And so the first quarter square represents a crisis in action, which ultimately is an energy that reflects to us where we're trying to initiate new patterns of being, but we're still uncertain about how those patterns actually show up in a way that are supportive. So we kind of try new things out and they work and we feel a bit more secure about that. But then we come back into ourselves and say, oh, don't get enough validation, or don't know if this is really working. Maybe it's not the right choice. And we move back. And so this goes on until eventually the square matures. And of course, we integrate the imprinting of whatever that square was about. And so if you have a look between the sun and the moon, this first quarter square between Scorpio and Aquarius, the moon's conjunct Mars. And we know that Mars has actually been playing around in Aquarius for ages, or even retrograded back over into Capricorn, and it was over the nodal axis. So this Mars energy has been pushing us to liberate and to individuate ourselves in unique ways, right? To change the pattern. So it's not a coincidence that right now, the pattern changing around our beliefs and the way that we intellectualize these beliefs is where this Moon-Mars conjunction is taking place, right? So the moon in a balsamic phase to Mars at the moment, i.e. completion, will essentially reflect to us that this square, this first quarter square between the sun and moon, indicates a need to finally feel that liberation, to break free from the beliefs. And that's why the picture in the background is so essential, or at least for the way I interpret this chart, because in order for us to actually break out of the mold in which we see reality right now, we need to allow ourselves to transcend past what we originally think and believe about it. You know, if you look at the world right now, there's a tremendous amount of chaos going on. You know, Pluto through Capricorn is really, 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 really intense. And this is not a time in which we all feel emotionally, you know, rigid and cut off, although we feel that way when we see the world, but it's not a time where we need to be that way. In fact, this nodal axis that's shifting into Cancer Capricorn is asking us to see that this is a time of softening up. Okay, softening up our responses, our subconscious responses towards life. And this is where this energy is really talking about. It's how does the subconscious response to life impact the way that you perceive your life? You know, and when we wrote about this in our New Moon article, we talked about the ability to believe in the third realm. As in, like, we can always see the situation from two sides, but what exists outside those two sides? And that's this kind of Uranian place outside the box. Think differently about it. And so how are we thinking differently with this first quarter square between Sun and the Moon in this conjunction, right? The Sun, the Moon in conjunction with Mars, initiating freedom, right? Liberation. And like I said, with this Pluto through Capricorn transit, it's intense. And so we can see the world as bleak, or we can see the world as an opportunity to self-create. I know that that's happened for me, you know, through this last 2-year cycle with the nodes moving through Leo and Aquarius. I've come to understand that in 5 years of teaching evolutionary astrology, I felt so limited in the ability to reach the people that want to learn this material, that want to understand their lives, right? I felt limited in the sense that I only have enough time, energy-wise, to, you know, hold classes and stuff. And so what has occurred for me right now, not necessarily just with these transits, but over the last 4 to 5 months, has been to take all of the knowledge of the 5 years and integrate it into an online school. And today, for me personally, and for Jen, it's being released. Our full education of EA from beginners all the way to advanced courses is being released today. A video that you can learn in your own time. You know, I don't have to be present in that sense because I'm present with regards to the videos. And for me, I feel liberated from that, because anybody that's contacting me and saying, hey, by the way, is it possible to do this astrology school? And I say, at the moment, I don't have like the energy for that. And now you can just go like, hey, I'm ready to study. And the beautiful thing about it is that it can meet everybody wherever they are in their own time. And for me, that's liberation, because it allows me to free up space to create more videos to support you even more, while simultaneously still supporting people at the same time. And the beauty of it is that it's all done in a way to help and nurture the purpose of EA and how that, contributes to our lives. I mean, that's my personal story, but in the sense of what it does for everybody else is it gives you freedom to interact and learn where you are. And I love that. I love that about that situation. So the way I feel is a complete freedom to create more and be of more service and to essentially multiply myself. Anyway, so there's a lot of positive change taking place, but it's also that we have to embody that within ourselves, and that's where a lot of uncertainty can materialize, And these energies haven't been friendly. This mutation cycle hasn't been friendly. I mean, in order to actually release the school over the last 2.5 weeks, I processed and put together, and it was exhausting. I was working literally from 9 o'clock in the morning when I woke up until 10 o'clock at night, editing videos, uploading, making sure that it's all perfect in that sense, recording. I mean, I don't know if you can hear in my throat, but at one point, I think it was like 5 hours straight. I was so afraid that I was actually going to get, my voice was going to disappear. And the funny thing about it is that the Mars at the moment is actually trining my natal Pluto and Mercury. So in Aquarius, right? So I've got this Mars energy stimulating my communication. And then at the same time, it's also bringing me this fracturing, right? Because after recording the videos, I don't talk to anybody. I can't. So the mutation has been really, really intense. And for a lot of us, it hasn't been friendly. It hasn't been a kind of, way in which we've been able to deal with it. So for you that are, that are dealing with a lot of the, transmutation that's taking place, it's really important to take it easy and to nurture yourself. I know I have been having to do it at the same time. I've been learning lots of lessons about how I work and how my psychology is and how I've had to look after myself during that period as well. It taught me a lot. And that's one of the things that I'm deeply grateful for in terms of this mutation, is that how I came into understanding what my passions were, and how to look after myself. And okay, so the summary here is that we're rewriting our beliefs and we're giving ourselves the opportunity to break the mold and the defined truths that keep us from feeling that we can be alive ultimately, and to show up and to give ourselves the opportunity to see that the world right now is going through a lot of change. We're going through a lot of change, but to believe in yourself and to believe in the ability to know that this is a time of awakening for everybody, and if we can jump onto that and we can allow ourselves to see that each experience is awakening ourselves into deeper layers of self-awareness and consciousness is expanding, there's a lot for us to actually take from this, as not just being able to see the doom and gloom. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks very much for letting me talk to you about this today. I hope that I've given you something to work with. And for those of you that are interested in actually learning the astrology or wanting to take part in it, on my website, the school is available. And in fact, it will be available completely at 10 o'clock my time, which is in Central European. And between now and 10 o'clock Central European, I think you just have to go and check the online time calculations. There is a 20% discount on the entire school. And then afterwards, the school will be available to purchase individual modules. You can purchase the whole thing. It depends on how you are wanting to learn. So I'm excited about that. And, if you want to learn more about what it entails, the school, please, send me an email and say, if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to respond. All right, peeps, have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.